Hello everyone and welcome again. So continuing our discussion about the orthopedics trauma basic principles class. Now we are going to talk about one of the more important topics in this series, and that is the management of open fractures. So here we will talk about the management in emergency department, cleaning of the wound and splinting, and we'll talk about the surgery done to open fractures, and we will talk about wound debridement, fracture stabilization, soft tissue reconstruction, and bone defect reconstruction. So let's start. So let's start by talking about the management in emergency department. So first of all, we start with the ATLS trauma protocol. This include the ABCs, the airway, the breathing, the circulation of the patient. You check all of those. You make sure that your patient is stable. So this has its own video. It's called management or early management of trauma patient. If you didn't see that yet, you have to. It's a very important video in this series. It's called the early management of a trauma patient. Then after that, you take full history and examination of the injuries, and this also has its own video. It's called history and examination of trauma patient, also in this playlist. And then you will grade the fracture according to the Gustello-Anderson classification, and this is the previous video also available in this playlist called the Gustello-Anderson classification of open fractures. And then you give antibiotic cover using IV antibiotics, and this is also furtherly explained in this video, which is also again called the Gustello-Anderson classification. So all of those points are done in minutes because you are working with a team. Someone will check the ABCs, and other one will grade the fracture, and you give antibiotic, and the history and examination will be done by other team member that will talk to the people who come with the patient. So now comes the part of the cleaning of the wound and splinting. So initially, no attempt should be made to remove anything other than gross contamination, and then cover with simple sterile saline soaked dressing. Then the limb should be brought out to length and correct alignment and splinted or casted. So again, you start with the ATLS, you take history, you grade the injury, you give antibiotic, then you remove the gross contaminants, and you splint or cast the limb. And the final part is the surgery part. The surgery of the open fractures consists of wound debridement and a form of fracture stabilization method. And this is done either as emergency surgery immediately after the injury or urgent surgery in less than 24 hours after the injury. So indications of emergency surgery. The emergency, again, meaning that when you finish those steps before, you immediately take the patient to the operating room. So indications for that is that there's gross contamination of the wound, or there is dysvascular limb requiring vascular repair, or there is compartment syndrome requiring fasciotomy. All other open fractures should undergo debridement and fixation within 24 hours, meaning all other open fractures are considered urgent and would be done surgery within 24 hours. The earlier, the better. The expertise of the team is more important, because remember, if you wait a little bit more, you will have a team with more experience, and this is more important than the time. So yeah, for the urgent surgery, it is done within 24 hours. So during surgery, we use general anesthesia. It is better for muscle relaxation, and it is better for the patient comfort. and we apply tourniquets and inflate it only to allow the identification of neurovascular structures and careful assessment of tissue integrity, and then deflate it to allow assessment of the capacity of the soft tissue and bone to bleed. So the tourniquet has only one thing to do, is that it would allow you to identify the neurovascular structures, and it would lead to careful assessment of tissue integrity. And after you've done that, you deflate the tourniquet and to give the limb the blood supply it needs, and also to allow assessment of capacity of the soft tissue and bone to bleed. Using tourniquet induces tissue ischemia in already badly injured limb. So inflate only when necessary and deflate it back immediately. Initial pre-scrubbing of the limb is performed to remove gross contaminants. Now regarding wound debridement. Remember I mentioned that the surgery contain two things: wound debridement and a form of fracture stabilization method. So let's talk about the wound debridement. So the wound edges are excised and the wound extended proximally and distally far enough for all the traumatized tissue to be seen and assessed, including the fractured bone ends. Also, it should take into account surgical exposure required for fracture stabilization and flapping or grafting procedures needed. And then examination of the fracture surfaces cannot be adequately performed without extracting the bone from within the wound. The simplest method is to bend the limb in the same manner in which it was forced to the moment of injury. Meaning, when you bend the limb, the fracture would be, this would lead to extracting of the bone and the fracture would be seen easily. So again, in wound debridement, the wound edges are excised and the wound extended, and then the fracture or the wound is bent or the limb is bent, so the bone is extracted and the fracture is examined easily. Now all contaminants or all contaminated tissue and dead tissue should be excised, including skin, fat, fascia, muscle, and bone. And muscle viability is assessed according to the 4 C's: the color, the contractility, consistency, and capacity to bleed. Major peripheral nerves and vessels should be identified and protected, and soft tissue under the bone should also be examined and debrided carefully. Finally, the wound is irrigated extensively with warmed normal saline, around 6 liters at low pressure, to remove remaining contaminants. And it is no benefit of pulsatile lavage. Pulsatile lavage using syringe or other methods would force contaminants deeper into the tissue, and it would be harmful to the tissue and to the patient because it leads to infection. So no benefit of that, and no benefit from adding antibiotics. Always irrigate with saline at low pressure. Now for the fracture stabilization. Remember again, the surgery is of 2 parts: the wound debridement and the fracture stabilization. So now for the fracture stabilization, it is important in getting the bone to heal, reducing infection risk, assisting recovery of the soft tissue, and control the pain. So it is important to stabilize the fracture. And after wound debridement, the patient repositioned on the table with traction, the surgical team re-scrub, the limb should be re-prepared and re-draped, and a new instrument should be used for the fracture stabilization. Definitive fracture fixation is performed whenever possible, depending if the debridement was adequate. But if there is extensive contamination and debridement wasn't adequate, example would be in blast injuries, definitive fixation can't be performed safely at first procedure, and temporary external fixation is required, and after that the patient is brought back to the operating room within 7 days For the second procedure, so there is the debridement would be repeated, and then the definitive fracture fixation is used. Now I will mention some points about the wound closure in the surgery. So primary wound closure done at the first procedure only if the patient has no significant comorbidities like DM and decreased immunity, and the patient is fully resuscitated, there is no gross contamination left in the wound, the debridement is complete and residual tissue are healthy, the fracture has been stabilized, and the wound can be closed without tension. So all those points have to be achieved for the wound to be closed at the first procedure. If the above criteria cannot be met and the patient needs second procedure, then the wound is left open and delayed primary closure is performed at the second procedure. Interrupted sutures are preferred over the continuous sutures because they are more stable, there is a precise alignment, and localized wound drainage and monitoring can be done through the interrupted sutures. Draining the injury is of no value, and low pressure vacuum dressing is applied to help minimize the wound edge edema. Now let's talk about the repeated debridement or the second procedure that is done after the first one. If there is doubt about the viability of the tissues, the wound left open and dressed for a second look optimally within 48 to 72 hours. Maximum is 7 days. Dressing during this time is best for these wounds are either a bead pouch consisting of a string of gentamicin beads under an adhesive dressing or a vacuum dressing. So both of these dressings are quite effective in preventing infection. And the patient then brought back to the theater after 48 hours for repeated assessment and debridement of the wound. Several procedures may be needed until debridement is complete. Now let's talk about the soft tissue reconstruction of the open fracture wound. So this is the task of the plastic surgeon to reconstruct the soft tissue, and tissue loss or wound edema may mean that the wound cannot be closed without tension, preventing either primary or delayed primary closure, and soft tissue coverage with a flap or graft is required. Grafting or flapping should be performed as soon as possible and within 6 days after the injury. And you should also know that about the soft tissue reconstruction ladder to understand the available options for soft tissue coverage, and you will study this more in plastic surgery rotations. So let's talk about the reconstructive ladder, the soft tissue reconstructive ladder. So there is many steps in this ladder, starting with the healing by secondary intention. Healing by secondary intention is that you leave the wound to heal by itself through granulation. No sutures, no anything except for dressing, and that's only used for small residual skin defects. If let's say we have this wound here, and we want that wound to heal by secondary intention, we leave it alone and the granulation tissue starts to accumulate until the wound is healed. And this is only used for small defects because the result is that there is fibrous tissue all over this defect, and it would be bad cosmetically wise, and also there is contractures would form because of the fibrous tissue. And remember, the fibrous tissue is non-functional, so this defect would be non-functional. The second step in the ladder is the primary tissue closure. It's also called healing by primary intention. The primary closure only possible if two healthy viable skin edges can be brought together without tension using sutures and glue or anything else. So basically it's used when the debridement is complete. And for example, we have this wound here and we want to heal this wound by a primary intention. We use sutures to approximate the edges of the wound, and we would get this wound after it's like that, and we have the suture here to approximate the edges. The third step in the ladder is grafting. Skin graft can be applied to a healthy vascularized tissue because the skin graft doesn't contain its vascular supply, and the tissue that is grafted has to have some form of vascular supply. For example, it's a muscle or fat, but not directly to a bone or tendon or metal work, because remember those would have poor vascular supply to the overlying tissues over them, so you can't use graft for them. The fourth step is the local tissue transfer, also called the local flap. The difference between the flap and graft is that the flap has its own blood supply, so this is needed to cover bone, tendon or metalwork. The flap may contain skin, fat, fascia, muscle or combination with its blood supply. The local flap are brought from area adjacent to the wound. The local flap may be random, supplied by unnamed artery, or axial, that's supplied by named artery. The fifth step in the reconstructive ladder is the regional tissue transfer, or the regional flap, the flap from the nearby location as the wound. And the final step is the free tissue transfer, the free flap, as a flap from distant site. Finally, let's talk about the bone defect reconstruction. So there might be residual defect in the bone after debridement, meaning after debriding the dead bone, there will be defect in the bone, and you can't bone graft immediately after debridement. That's to control infection, and the bone graft require well vascularized tissue around it, and it also require a healed soft tissue around it and a stable fracture. So for that, you have to wait until grafting. So you can't graft immediately for those reasons here. So you have to wait until grafting. So you basically graft the patient in a second procedure. So after debridement, you either stabilize the fracture out to length with external or internal fixation and address the defect at a later procedure. The defect may be filled with cement to maintain a gap to later fill it with bone graft. So at the time of the procedure, you fill it with cement and you leave it until a second procedure. That's when you graft. Or you shorten the limb acutely, so you stabilize it at shorter length by get the edges to be in direct contact to each other, either definitively in the upper limbs or temporarily in lower limbs. So you basically, you don't use cement here, you approximate the edges to each other, and you do that definitively in upper limbs, or temporarily in lower limbs. You do later procedure for lengthening it again. And acute skeletal shortening can decrease the effective size of and complexity of the soft tissue defect, so it is beneficial. So if you use the second method here, this would be beneficial to the patient because it would decrease the effective size and complexity of soft tissue defect. In the ward, the limb is elevated and its circulation is carefully monitored, and antibiotics continued for 1 day after surgery if gastella grade 1, or for 3 days after the injury or after debridement for gastella other grades. And with that, we reach the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and also if you want to support more, you can by subscribing to the Patreon. Link will be provided in the description of this page. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Peace.